So the argument would be it's dangerous to be alive. A sloppy copy. That is different than a copycat. Things become very important. Yesterday we were talking about horror movies versus fairy tales. And the sidekick in a fairy tale very well could have a origin story of a scary guy in a horror movie, the horror movie scary guy. And with more perspective in that arc is the difference of a copycat and a sloppy copy. In mathematics, it's called the imaginary numbers and the complex plane, because when you have a real number and then you add it with an imaginary and then you add like a secondary term, then you get a complex plane. The importance of a gate on the land is just as strong as like a fabric if you're making armor, but to like the degree of the muscle tonality within a body versus a landscaping, how well this fence is sat on top of the landscaping is very much as though a seam would enact in a body armor upon impact. Now, if you're looking at what type of gates are the best, you're going to have the classical gate where you have two strongholds, one at the top and one at the bottom. And the more that you can fasten a gate to match the ground under it, you know, the landscaping about it, is going to be how well a seam is kept over time. And you can go down to the pressure points of the fine grain tunings of the degrees. And this is what inlays the fantastic attributes of, you know, something that could be utilized so well in tune that you could just have a spacesuit be regular clothing if you had the seams fastened enough. When you're with someone and it's a relation and there's like a moment where there's someone getting in the groove and then the other one's like, pump it up. That's a physical vessel and an actual cannon. And then that's what the body's makeup is. The less graphic scenario is your breathing. Growing up, there was a drug lady and she's like, if you breathe through a straw, this is what it would be like if you were to smoke a whole bunch, so that all the tar in your lungs would close up, and so then your windpipe would be breathed through a straw. She wasn't kidding. So these are all like physical things. If your lung blows out, they'll put in like an air balloon. You could technically put an air balloon connected to your windpipe, and that would double as a lung, and you could actually use that. It's not going to be good, but the point in being that like your body's makeup of these vessels is an actual like physical thing, so these can be used for great aptitudes. Almost like when you electrocute a pickle with two wires, that's how a brain is. The brain is the pickle, and it always has neurons firing off separately. If you quantize stuff so perfectly that what you would just describe as the cell walls would be so intricate that into the cell walls intricacy, you could double each value as better than original, because you only get one copy. Everything after that, if you're swapping out body parts, is a sloppy copy. The same can be said for a building and how much worth is in one. You know, I saw someone inside of a door jam freaking out because of her boyfriend. They broke up, I think, because of that instance. But I was thinking, how big of this door jam would this lady need in order to not be flipping out in it? I'm like, you could have a castle the size of the Milky Way fitted as that door jam, and there would still be no chance that she would recover from this guy because she hated him that much. So you can quantize stuff as that the more that you understand the dollar and how much goes in it. And like, thank God a penny is like 100 of just $1. And how many dollars does it cost a building? That's how much value you can actually quantize to put real relations in if you double it with the first example, not taking it for granted. Thanks for cells. So if you were to combine death and sin together and then throw it into nature, despite if it got there from man-made or not, it would probably take up the element of a makeup of protein, and the element would be sharp as a tack. So if you combine the word protein and tack, what if that was put into a filtration system? You know, whenever you eat too much sugar, it raises your blood sugar, and there can be other things worse than sugar where they all go into your blood. And so if you've got 2 and 2 together, it's gonna get caught up if it's in a knot, because things that are sharp tend to stick and get stuck. So if you've got that in hand, under your skin, it's gonna be like a major problem, right? You know, fine things take a lot of care in order to have them come out right. And it's no surprise that you need 2 things, and specifically a seed, but then the seed needs an environment that needs just right for the seed. And it's no surprise that an envelope and a knot could incorporate both of these things in nature, whereas any work done can be looked at done best if it's a closed loop system. And in a closed loop system, it's done best if it's finely knit. How well an envelope is put together is the art of it in itself, with what it can hold inside of it. If it were a knot, might look like this. And so in getting the ingredients right, you can have an outcome be possible. But for things that are not artificial, like inseminations of death, you look for for example, if you have like a nitro brew, and then a Bartista's like, it can't be an extra large because when you pull it, it'd mess up the formula. And so that's a legitimacy, and that's in line with cold pressed herbs. These have like a thing further where you can utilize it for like an advancement and naturally. So like, the more that food is processed and cut corners in either to make the yield like easier to sell in bulk, you're Xing out modifications that a user could do if they knew some like knots and envelopes and math in that. Similarly, in labeling, you've got to call a spade, and this is when you get the ducks lined up in a row, you're able to do so. So like this image of a woman, it reminds me of like this other image of this guy on the internet who had like a problem and like he had this, I think it was like a lady, and this is really demeaning, but the spade is a spade. Genetically, like I bet they would have a